Hello listeners. This week we will conclude level 2 of the Darwin project. When we last left James and Rebecca, they were dealing with some unsavory creepy crawlies. And while I would love to tell you that it was all a fever dream, you will find that these monsters are the least of their problems. For those who are new here, I would suggest listening to the Darwin Project Level 1 from Season 1, and then listen to the first part of this story to understand what is really happening. And for those who are joining us today and every Tuesday, strap in tight. The trials are about to begin.
Hello, listeners. My name is Professor Adontes Finch, and welcome to the Nightmare Trials.
With Rebecca in hand, we began to run down the stairs. I chanced to look over my shoulder to see where the giant spider was. It wasn't chasing us. For some reason, it was just standing in its spot, its two front legs pointed high into the air, and it tilted its head back. Another deafening roar echoed down to us, and our pace continued downwards. It started to become darker and darker as we descended the stairs. I had Rebecca move in front of me and I grabbed some of the glow sticks. I broke 2 of them and handed her one. Another roar from behind us, but it almost seemed faint as it competed with the sound of the rushing waterfall. Further and further we descended, and our pace slowed as the only light we were now afforded was that of the glow sticks themselves. Old spider webs started to become visible, covered in dust and debris. The webs themselves were nearly as thick as my forearm, and they held some stickiness to them. And we found this out as a solid chunk of Rebecca's hair was snatched up as she ducked under one of the web strands.
Ow! Oh, god damn it. My hair is stuck.
Hold still. Let me see if I can get it loose. I firmly grasped the section of her hair that hung underneath the webbing and gave it a pull. But nothing happened. I pulled again and again, but the damn hair was matted in the webbing too thick. I can't get your damn hair free.
Well, figure it out. I'm starting to freak out here a bit, James. If that spider decides to make its way down those steps, we are fucked.
I'm trying. Do you have a knife or something?
Does it look like I have a knife? Where am I hiding it? My ass?
I just let out an annoyed sigh. You know, there's no need to get shitty with me. I'm just trying to problem solve here. I stood back and shined the glow stick around, seeing if there was anything I could use to cut her hair free. I shone my light up against the wall next to us, and I noticed that the rocks themselves were some form of shale. If I could hit one of these hard enough, I bet a piece would break off, and maybe that could be something usable to cut her hair. It would be crude, but it just may work. I began to pound my hand on the wall, and sure enough, small pieces began to flake off.
What are you doing?
I think I can pound out a jagged enough piece of rock to cut your hair with. Just hold on. I gave the wall a solid hit with my palm, and a sizable chunk fell free. The edge was sharp-ish. Probably not much sharper than a butter knife. But given our circumstances, it would just have to do. Okay, I think I got something that can work. Just hold still and I will get you out of there.
Just hurry. I'm starting to freak out.
I grabbed Rebecca's hair and began to saw away. Agonizingly, strand after strand began to break away. After a good minute of trying, I stopped to give my arm a rest. Jesus, okay, I'm almost all the way through. We should be done here in a... I stopped mid-sentence as I watched the webbing in front of me begin to vibrate. My heart stilled and my breathing slowed.
James, what's going on?
Shh. I'm trying to concentrate here. I think the web just moved.
What? Oh shit, is there something on it?
I'm thinking that there may be.
Then cut me the fuck loose!
Small rocks and dust hit me from above. I slowly looked up into the darkness above us. I wasn't sure, but it looked like thousands of eyes were staring back at me, slowly and methodically approaching us down the side of the wall. I reached out towards Rebecca's hair and once again began to work on getting her free. More rocks fell. I began to saw faster. I was almost through now, just a bit more to go. I stilled and looked towards my left from where the sound came from. 2 massive, furry white legs stepped delicately on the old webbing, and eyes larger than my face stared back at me. Oh, fuck. Rebecca screamed, and in one swift motion I yanked and swiped at the last strands of hair. Then all at once, a spider larger than a school bus launched at us, its giant mandible opening and shutting, clacking together like gunfire and echoing up the chamber wall. I pushed at Rebecca, dropping my glow stick, and we both tumbled down the stairs as thick webbing shot out from the spider's bottom and slammed into the wall where we once were. A chorus of screams erupted above us, and dozens of the smaller spiders descended. Our forward tumble down the stairs stopped abruptly as Rebecca and I fell into a metal wall. Dazed and badly bruised, we both rose to our feet and watched in the glow of the yellow light as smaller spiders and the monster broodmother began to battle with one another. That must have been why the one that sprung at us didn't pursue us further. It knew that the much larger spider dwelled down here, and it didn't stand a chance on its own. So its roaring earlier was its call for help. I watched as 3 spiders landed on the broodmother's back and bit in deep. A large howl erupted, and the broodmother grabbed 2 more spiders in front of her and began to rip their limbs off one by one. Thick, gelatinous goo dribbled down and fell on the stairs, slopping over the edge like a viscous sap of snot. And the smell that followed was gut-wrenching. The battle ensued, and I noticed that the much larger spider was slowing in its attack on the smaller ones. Their venom must be doing its job, killing it slowly. As if in answer to my question, the broodmother faltered and fell into its own web. In quick, rapid movements, the other spiders descended on her, shooting their webbing and wrapping her up in her final resting space. I did not want to stick around and watch this anymore. We had to keep moving, and there was no telling now what these spiders would do once she was dead. I turned to Rebecca, seeing the fear and disgust on her face. The blood from her forehead had seemed to stop flowing, which was good. She didn't appear to be hurt in any other way. And other than some sore ribs, I was fine. I looked at our surroundings and noticed that the stairs had stopped some 15 feet down from where we tumbled. Next to us was an opening of sorts, just big enough for our bodies to fit into. It was going to be tight, but we should be able to squeeze in. I peered inside and was met with darkness. I looked further down the crack and my eyes were drawn to a small, shining light flooding in from the other side. But what sucked is that the crack in the wall was just that. A thin, tight, and claustrophobic crack all the way to the end. I whispered to Rebecca, "Hey, we need to get out of here before they realize we are down here." I nodded my head over to the small entrance. We should be able to go through here.
But what if there are more of those in there?
I looked back at the entrance and then back at Rebecca. There isn't enough room in there for there to be more. It's going to be a tight fit, but I think we can make it. Regardless, it's better than staying out here.
Okay, but we need to hurry. They almost have that thing completely wrapped up.
I took a deep breath in and I exhaled. I turned my body sideways and began to shuffle my way through the wall. It wasn't horribly tight, but I couldn't move back and forth more than a few inches. Still sideways and shuffling along, There was enough room for Rebecca to make her way through and away from the danger of the spiders. "Hey, go ahead and start making your way through to me." She turned sideways and began to shuffle in. I watched as she cleared the entrance, and I let go of a breath that I didn't know that I was holding. She was safe, and those damn arachnids couldn't get her from here. She shuffled in close to me and put her hand on my shoulder.
Hey, let's keep on moving. I've got to get the hell away from those damn things.
I let out a chuckle. Yeah, let's keep moving. Hey, can you pop one of those glow sticks though and drop it on the ground? The light should bounce off the walls and give us just a bit more visibility in here. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a glow stick. She cracked it and the walls around us lit up in a deep green. She dropped it to the ground and we started to move forward. We kept the sideways movement, and I focused my sight on the light in front of me. Moving slowly, I began to notice that the area around me seemed to be getting tighter. I turned to Rebecca and looked behind her. It was nothing but darkness. So either the glow stick went out or the path behind us was closing in. And since I knew the glow sticks had been lasting for a while, I could only assume it was the latter. Rebecca, I think the walls are closing in. The fear in my voice making itself known.
I was noticing that too. The light had disappeared a minute ago, and I can feel the walls closing in.
Fuck. I began to breathe heavily, my mind racing in a million different directions.
Hey, what's wrong?
I should have told you this, but I hate tight spaces. Like, I can't even watch the videos of cave divers without freaking out. I thought it was going to be fine at first. I could see the light at the end, and it didn't look too tight in here and all, but now the walls are literally closing in, and I'm starting to lose control of my mind. Rebecca grabbed my hand.
Listen to me. I know the walls are closing in on us, but I need you to stay calm and keep moving forward. The exit is just right there. We are minutes away from being free from here, so keep it together and keep moving forward.
That had to be the shittiest pep talk I've ever had, but I understood her sentiment. Oh, okay. Let's just keep moving. I turned towards the exit and started to move again. My chest heaved as I pressed my body forward, the jagged edges of the wall scraping against my skin. Every inch forward felt like a battle, my ribs bruising painfully against the stone, the coarse rock digging into my knees and elbows. The air was stifling and thick with dampness, and my breaths came in ragged gasps as panic began to set in more. Ahead, just beyond the narrowing crevice, I could see the exit getting closer, and with it, the promise of freedom. I forced my shoulder through the tight space I was in, gritting my teeth as I felt my shirt snag and tear. I tried to breathe slowly, to keep my mind from spiraling into the growing terror that gnawed at the edges of my thoughts. The pressure of the stone against my body was unbearable, squeezing me from all sides. My fingers clawed at the walls now, searching for any grip to pull myself forward, but with every movement I seemed to get more stuck. Sweat poured down my face, dripping into my eyes and blurring my vision. The walls were getting tighter and tighter, an invisible force slowly pressing me in. The daylight ahead flickered as though it might vanish at any moment. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, drowning out all rational thought. I began to thrash, kicking and pushing, my pulse quickening with every second that passed. I can't do this! I screamed, my voice echoing uselessly in the small space. With her voice beginning to strain, Rebecca responded back.
Just keep moving. We're almost there. James, just keep moving.
Somewhere deep inside, the primal urge to survive overpowered the fear I now felt. Gritting my teeth, I flattened my body against the back of the wall as much as I could. I began to contort my limbs through the tight space, inching forward with agonizing slowness. The light was so close now, just a few more feet. My leg caught on a jutting rock, sending a sharp pain up my thigh. I bit back a scream, but didn't stop. I struggled against the rock, now pressing harder into my thigh. With a quick jerk, I broke free, tearing my pants and scraping my skin raw. Every muscle within me was burning now. I reached out with my hand, gripping the edge of the entrance, and I began to pull myself with everything I had. My arm broke free, and I hooked the edge of the wall on the exit. I pulled and pulled, my shoulder making its way free. Then my head. I took a deep breath of air and exhaled hard, making my body flatten even more, and the panic inside me began to subside, ever so slightly. I felt hands on the other side of me begin to push. I pulled harder as more of my body broke free. When I had more than half of my body out, I reached down and grabbed Rebecca's hand.
Pull me out.
Pushing now and exiting with everything I had, I pulled on Rebecca's hand. Her head and shoulders popped out. I reached out and grabbed the top of her torso and pulled. Like a cork from a bottle of wine, we shot out from the exit, and we collapsed onto the cold earth, chests heaving as fresh air once again filled our lungs. Holy fuck. I never want to do that again.
You're telling me. I'd rather have them eat mythostam spiders. At least that would have been quick.
I looked up at the exit we just came from. It groaned ominously as the walls themselves closed in and sealed shut. I rose to my feet and helped Rebecca back up to hers. My thigh was burning, and I looked down to see that I had a nice little gash in it. Nothing too serious, but an annoyance nonetheless. I took in our surroundings. We were in a circular room with high concrete walls. Artificial light shone down from above us and illuminated most of the space we were in. I glanced around the room, wondering what the hell we were supposed to do now. It had to be close to the end of the trial, and we needed to find our safe space to get to the next level. Rebecca pulled on my arm and I turned to her. Hey, what's up? She didn't say anything. She just pointed to a shadowy area where the light just barely reached. My mouth hung open when I realized what I was looking at. Within the area of the shadows, there were stone coffins standing upright. Some were closed and others were left open. By a quick count, there were 20 in total. We both began to walk towards them, and as we approached, I noticed that on the front of each was a name. My heart skipped a beat when my eyes fell upon two open caskets with the names James and Rebecca. Rebecca and I looked at one another. Are we supposed to get inside those? I asked. Are these the safe spaces that we were told about?
I think so.
I heard a scream behind us and turned to watch a man pull himself from another crack in the wall. Once he was free, he turned and began to pull at someone else. Slowly, I saw a woman's head break free. She was screaming and doing everything she could to remove herself from the closing wall. And she had made it out. The man and woman both turned back to the crack and reached in. They were yelling at someone, telling them to hurry up and to give them their hand. I didn't hesitate. I began to run towards them. There was someone else in there, and they needed help. As I approached, the man turned towards me, a look of wild panic on his face. Thinking it must be another threat, he was ready to fight, and I screamed out to him, "I'm here to help! Get them out of there quickly before it closes!" He turned away from me, his mind clearly made up that I wasn't going to hurt him. He started to pull his body back into the closing exit.
I got her. I fucking got her. Now pull me.
I grabbed onto the man and began to tug as hard as I could in the opposite direction. Screams erupted from within the crack as the woman stuck inside was in clear distress and panic. Arms wrapped around me, and I saw Rebecca pulling at me in an attempt to help. The panicked woman's arm emerged from the crack, then her head and shoulders. Her face was in ruins as deep cuts and scrapes bled. We pulled and pulled, but with every pull, less of her body broke free from the grip of the walls. She was so close to being free. If we could just get half her body out, one good pull should allow for the rest of her to fall out. "Pull, goddammit! Pull!" I screamed. With only the front half of her upper torso free from the wall, the woman began to scream in agony. The crunch of bones slowly breaking could be heard, and hot blood shot from her mouth and sprayed all of us. She shot her head up towards me, and a knowing look of fear and sadness swept across her face. She knew she was done. But I wasn't going to give up. Fucking pull! Then, with one final rumble, the walls closed in, ripping the woman's body apart. We all fell backwards, as the top half of the woman fell free and on top of us. Her now lifeless eyes staring into mine, as if asking me how I could let her die like this. I screamed and began to shuffle away. Rebecca began to pull at me, trying to get me up. She was screaming something at me, but in my panic, I couldn't make out what she was saying. Then something wet hit my arm, and a stinging sensation pulled me from my madness. I looked down to see a large welt begin to boil and blister up on my skin. Another wet sting on my hand, and I heard Rebecca scream out in pain. I looked up to her to see a boil begin to rise up on her cheek, right below her left eye. What the fuck was this? Then I saw the dirt from the ground around me begin to kick up as small plumes rose in the air. Something was falling from the sky. "Acid rain!" I yelled out. "Everybody, run to the coffins, now!" We all got to our feet and took off. The acid began to fall from the sky and into the spots we were just occupying. The rainfall chased us, getting closer and closer with every step. I felt a stinging sensation on my calf and I cried out. But I had to fight through it. To stop now would mean certain death. I watched as Rebecca reached her coffin first and began to close it. But I could tell that the door was too heavy for her. I rushed up and told her to get back. I pushed with everything I had and shut her in tight. There was the sound of an airlock telling me that she was going to be okay in there. There was no doubt now. These tombs were our safe spaces. I looked back to see the man and woman running towards me at full tilt. "Find the coffin with your name on it, then get in and shut the door. You will be safe in there." Their eyes darted back and forth, searching for their tomb. And almost as if in unison, they broke away from one another and ran to their respective spots. The man made it to his coffin first, and with a grunt and heave, his door had closed, and the whir of the lock sounded out. I then turned my attention towards the woman. She was struggling to shut her door. I looked towards the oncoming rain. It was getting closer, but I should have enough time. Without another second to think, I ran towards the woman's coffin and pushed it close. A splatter of the acid rain bounced from the ground and hit me on the ass. I let out a scream as I felt multiple boils began to fizzle up. The torrential part of the rain was almost upon me now. I had to move. I turned and ran back to my safe space, feeling the falling rain begin to tear through my clothes and bite into my skin. My head rocked to the side as a drop hit the top of my cranium. It felt like there was a gremlin up there, burrowing its way into my skull. And I really hope that the rain was only superficial in its damage. Because if not, that drop will find its way into my brain, and I'm done for. I finally reached my tomb, and I pulled the door shut with everything I had. Darkness fell upon me, and the sound of the airlock put me at ease. The area I was in was not cramped, and I was thankful for that. I had full range of motion in here, and if I wanted to, I could sit down with my legs crossed. So my claustrophobia wasn't impacting me just yet, but I wasn't sure how long that would last. I could hear the rain now hitting the outside of my enclosure. The coffin had to have been made of some non-corrosive material. They said it was our safe space, and with the money they had on us, I wouldn't assume they would just force us in here to kill us outright. The sound of the rain outside picked up even more. It fell harder and harder, almost to the point where I thought it was probably coming down in sheets now outside. And I felt sorry for those out there, the ones with the open coffins. I felt sorry for the girl who was split in half by the door. And most of all, I began to feel sorry for myself. For the first time since being in these damn games, I began to pity my situation. Maybe it was the isolation I was now in. Or maybe it was the realization that I wasn't going to get out of the final game. If it came down to it, I would sacrifice myself to let Rebecca win. So what I was feeling now must be the grieving process of my life. This must be me allowing for my mind to understand that I was going to let myself die so someone else could live. And like it or not, my survival instincts are just going to have to live with that. A hissing noise and a cold air began to flow in around me. They must be pumping oxygen into this enclosure so we can breathe. A red light then illuminated my confines, and I could finally see around me. There were 4 solid walls and a ventilation duct in the ceiling. That must be where they're pumping the air in. A light appeared in front of me where my nameplate would have been. It was a screen of sorts, showing me the outside of the coffin. The acid rain had now risen just below my chin, and I watched as the frequency of the rain falling slowed and then stopped. The liquid rippled around my viewing screen, and the color of it was just off. It shone a light purple on the top, but as it splashed up against my screen, it turned to a darker shade of violet. I leaned in close to get a better view. It lifted and fell almost as if being drawn like the tides on a beach. A burned and blistered face suddenly appeared on the screen in front of me, and I jumped back with a scream. Tufts of long blonde hair hung from the person's head, and most of the skin around their face had been devoured away by the caustic material. The one eye that was visible and out of the water had partially melted away, leaving a half-filled and blackened chasm. The liquid sloshed in and out of the woman's open mouth, and with each minor wave, bits of burned and blighted flesh poured out. I sat there and watched as the woman that I couldn't save from the closing wall floated. I closed my eyes and turned my head away as her body passed by my screen. I sat to the ground and felt numbness flow over my body. What was the point of all of this? And why should I even try? I should just open the coffin door and let the water flow in and take me. Just fucking end it all and be done with this nightmare. There came the sound of a klaxon alarm. A sharp electric pain racked my body. My muscles began to clench and unclench in sporadic intervals. The world around me turned gray and then black, and I slipped from consciousness.
Thank you for listening and supporting this podcast. If you would like access to the interdimensional radio station, you can search for the Nightmare Trials on Patreon. Once there, it is only $2 per month to gain access to our extra short stories and chat discussion with the professor. Your contribution helps us continue to do what we do. Further, you can go to the nightmaretrials.square.site and order merch and suggest to be a part of one of our stories. We would love nothing more than to add your name to our writings. Lastly, make sure to follow the podcast and hit the notification button so you never miss an episode. Until we meet again.